Hi Green Urbanites! So here we are at itmes, and Sarah is talking to Sarah, and we are going to talk today about how to make a terrarium. Pretty cool stuff. So let's get right into it.
Excellent. And when we're talking terrariums, we're not talking about your run-of-the-mill bottle terrarium. We're making it out of an old light fixture.
That's pretty cool.
Yep, recycling at its best. And what we're going to do is, your first thing is you want to pick light fixtures. There's a couple different kinds. I'm going to use an open one today, but you have like your sconce ones that you can hang on the wall that are closed. You have open ones over there that used to be like a dish that went on top of the light that I have my jade plants growing out of right now.
Pretty cool.
So you have lots of options when it comes to terrarium and planters out of recycled materials. But for today's purposes, we're going to use this one. The first thing to do when you are working with a light fixture is to take the light wiring out of it. Watch out if there is insulation. Sometimes they use that in there to make sure that the place doesn't burn down. But it's usually just a bolt or a nut that you unscrew.
So did you just get this light fixture like from a thrift store, or?
I did. I went to the Habitat Restore place, and where they use, instead of throwing all these construction demolition jobs out, they let other people use it. So, it's just a quick taking the pieces off.
So you want to clear everything out except for sort of the framework of what's left of the fixture.
Yeah, and now you have a nice container. Insides are gone.
No more insides?
No more insides.
New insides coming.
That's right. And since there is holes in the bottom that you can see, which is great for drainage and whatnot, but we don't want all the all the water to come out, I'm just going to block it, and then we're going to put stuff around it so you won't even see it.
Okay, what are you blocking it with?
This is a top from sour cream.
Cool. More recycling.
More recycling at its best. All right. So what I use to kind of do the outside where I'm going to hide the container is some sphagnum moss. Don't mind the
So where would you
dirt.
get something like that?
Lowe's, Home Depot, Stanley's, any sort of place that has plants usually has some sphagnum moss. Or you can just get it at any craft store. Because they have it in like the floral department, but it adds a nice little base to it where it's going to hide everything, but it's not going to look really crummy. And now it looks like a forest bed is being made. Excellent. And then on top of here you can have a couple options. You can add rocks, like I have some crushed white rocks. You could use pea gravel, you could use anything along those lines. But with this, it makes a pretty nice barrier, so I'm not going to do anything as far as rocks go.
So would you normally add the rocks first if you are going to add them?
Yeah, if I had a closed container, because this one still has openings at the bottom, right here, but that's why we put the moss in, is to block all the dirt from coming out.
Okay.
If it was a closed container, I would put rocks in, because that helps with the drainage of the plant so it doesn't get moldy and gross.
Okay.
And kill your plant. So I'm just going to use the moss. And then what I have here is I have regular playground sand and organic potting soil. And when you magically combine these two, you get
the magic of television.
Woo! Woo! It's like cookie dough, but with dirt and sand. And you use the sand in there to, again, help with drainage. Because depending on what kind of plants you use, whether you're using succulents or tropicals or herbs, they all need a little, different amounts of drainage. And I'm going to be using succulents today, so a little bit more sand, it's good to go. So, I've mixed it so it's a nice even consistency. You're not going to have too much dirt, you're not going to have too much sand. It's a pretty even mix. And then, I'm just going to make a nice little base.
Okay, so speaking of succulents, what are all the different types of things that you can use in a terrarium?
You can use a lot of different things. Some people use the air plants, which are super easy to use. You just mist them like once every 2 weeks. You can use the succulents, which I like using because they're a little bit harder to kill. You have your tropicals, your stuff that you can't ever kill, like wandering Jew plants that eventually will trellis down, or you have your your phyto plants that are the big green ones that you can find at just any place that they sell plants. At Kroger, at Walmart, you name it. You can get those there as well. But I got mine at Stanley's.
Which we like to support our local people. So Stanley's is a good place to go.
Stanley's is my favorite. I always get my stuff there. Just there last week. And once you put your layer of sand in, you might want to take a paper towel and kind of get all the gook off the side. We're going to add more to it, but just to make it kind of look pretty as you go. Because with terrariums, it's all about layering. If I was going to do, if this was all closed and I had a closed top to it, another layer that I would also put in the bottom is activated charcoal or activated carbon. You can get it at the fish department at any pet store. It's the best way to do it, and it just keeps the air nice and clean. Just looks kind of like that. Nothing too exciting. Little black bits.
So the key would be you're adding that if it's going to be a closed up one.
If it's closed, you want this. If it's open, you don't really need it because it's getting fresh air on a regular basis. So now that I have my base, I'm going to start getting out my plants, and I've chosen a nice little succulent. And with succulents, you don't have to water them too often. They're just, you know, you want to when you do water them, you want to make sure that they dry out in between waterings, and you just kind of get all the excess dirt. You want to leave, once you start seeing the roots, you can do that. You can just leave it, but you just want to kind of get the excess off. And then you start your placement. I'm going to stick one there, and then maybe go with one of my smaller ones, which I'm a big, huge fanatic for chicks and hens. And they grow, they have little babies, like this is a baby of that one. And again, I'm going to take the excess dirt off of it. But these guys, they're good for outdoors, so if you want to have a little patio or a little screened-in porch, this would be perfect out there. They like sun, they're hardy.
Now, is this something you would bring in at the wintertime if you're keeping it outside, or can they stay outside?
These they can stay outside. I have a tendency, if they're in pots like this, I will bring them inside. But if they're covered, just so they don't frost. But I have some planted in my garden, and you know, they might look a little wilty, but they they come back. So no need to worry. Oh, and I have a moth in my container. All right, so I'm gonna add a little bit more potting soil, a little bit more sand. Do a nice little mix.
Now, would you do less sand if you're doing something that's not a succulent?
Yes, I would do a little bit less sand, but then you can use sand later on as a decorative thing, like on the top.
Okay.
Another thing you can do is when you already have your plants in there, you don't want to just shove all the dirt on top of them, so you can use a little container to kind of work around them so that you'll cover their roots, but you don't cover the actual plant. Some people use funnels. I just use the container. There's another little bug. Gotta love dirt. A little bit more on the side. Alright, and they're set, all of the edges are covered. And now, I want to get a little bit decorative with it. So I'm going to just take some plain sand, and now we're going to make what I like to call a desert oasis. So
this is really kind of where the art of it all comes into, and it goes beyond just a potted plant. Now you're kind of making it into a whole scene.
Exactly, and there's so many things that you can add to it. You can add characters. Like maybe I made this a forest, and I put, you know, you can look in the dollhouse department, and they have deer. They have camels. If you wanted to make this really desert, you could put a camel in there, or you can.
I'd put a donkey in mine.
Put a donkey in it. You could put Shrek in it to go with the donkey. You have lots of options.
And this seems like something too that would be good to do with kids too. It seems like something that they could definitely help along with.
They can, and you know, it's so simple. And now I have my plants in there, but maybe you're like, oh, it looks good, but maybe it's a little bare. I have my plate of foliage that you can choose from, and this is just different kinds of moss. Got some crusty lichen. This is called reindeer moss, and it's actually a different type of lichen. So you can just add some, maybe I'll add some greenery to it.
So where would one find such things?
Again, you can get it at Stanley's. You can get it at any of the different stores where you can get plants.
Okay.
That kind of looks like a tumbleweed. And now imagine a little camel standing right there, or a donkey in the desert. And then maybe, I think I like the desert scene better. Let's get rid of the green and put some more of the brown in there. And then maybe for accent I would put a seashell or something along those lines. And then dust it off. Make sure that the edges are not too dusty with dirt, and if they are, you can change them. Blow a little of the excess sand that fell down, and voila, I have a desert. I did get some in my succulent, but again, with stuff like this, you can just spritz them, once or twice a week, just little, and it keeps enough water in there for them. It doesn't have all the sand and dirt flowing out, and then you have your succulents thriving. Eventually, these little guys will get little babies, and you can take them off and save them for your next terrarium.
Pretty
and
awesome.
The process keeps going.
So you go from an ugly, ugly light fixture to a beautiful terrarium. Pretty cool, Sarah. Thanks.
Thank you, Sarah.